Hello, how are you? A good night of Shabbos. Today is Erev Shabbos Kodesh Parshas Bamidbar. Shabbos is Erev Chodesh Sivan. Sunday, Mirza Hashem Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach is Rosh Chodesh Sivan. So what is the connection between all these inyanim? And al derech zeh we're learning Perek Shishi of Pirkei Avos. First of all, I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. We'll start with a prayer, and today's prayer is a gratitude and a blessing to Hashem for the Torah. It says that from Rosh Chodesh Sivan, our Hazal tell us, Hischil Moshe le'es asek imoyim. Moshe Rabbeinu started occupying himself seriously in preparing the Yidden for Matan Torah, the greatest experience in the history of the Jewish nation. And as a matter of fact, the greatest experience in the history of mankind is the experience of Sinai Matan Torah. This is a subject we can talk about for weeks straight. So therefore, we have to prepare ourselves. Every good thing warrants preparation. The 49 days of Sfiras HaOmer was a preparation. Actually, from the moment of Yetzias Mitzrayim was the beginning. The whole purpose, the whole point of Yetzias Mitzrayim was to come to Matan Torah. But in particular, starting from Rosh Chodesh Sivan, that's when we get serious about the preparations, and we'll speak about it soon. But first, let's give a blessing to Hashem for the greatest gift that we ever got, which is the Torah. And we say every single day, Birchas HaTorah, which is a very serious subject unto itself. But Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Asher Kirishonim b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu al divrei Torah. We thank Hashem for the words of Torah that He gave us. And then comes a blessing after that, V'harevno, which means that we should find the words of Torah sweet. The next blessing is a very important blessing. It's brought down in Shulchan Aruch, that if you have in mind properly Kavanah during the following bracha V'harevno, then it will be fulfilled that V'niya Nachnu V'tzetzoeinu V'tzetzoei Chol Amcha Beis Yisrael, that may our children and the children of our children, etc., all the children should find the Torah sweet, etc. So Baruch Hashem, we have the Torah. Ma'afti Seiresecha Kol Hayom Yisichasi. We have to we have to be always excited about Torah. So, this week's Parsha is called Bamidbar. All the commentaries and in the Rebbe's Sichos, there's a lot about why we start Parshas Bamidbar before Shavuos. This year we also have Nosai, but Bamidbar always comes before Shavuos, sometimes Nosai also. What's the connection between Sefer Bamidbar and Matan Torah? So, the Rebbe talks about in many places the concept of counting, similar to what Rashi starts off over here, Mitechi Basan, Monanois and Tomid, because Hashem loves the Yidden, therefore He counts them constantly. So we see the importance of Yidden. Everything is about Yidden. Matan Torah is about Yidden. As it says that, one second, Rashi, Mitechi Basan, the fun of Monanois Kol Shah. Because Hashem loves us, He counts us constantly. Now, Matan Torah is about the entire Jewish people. Machshavtan sheYisrael kodma l'chol davar. The whole purpose of Torah was for the Jewish nation. As the famous Tanakh Belio says, Mi kodem l'mi, Torah or Bnei Yisrael. And we say Bnei Yisrael because it says Tzavas Bnei Yisrael, Daber al Bnei Yisrael, Amer al Bnei Yisrael. First there has to be a Bnei Yisrael, and then there's a Torah. And actually, the Razal also say that if one person, one neshama, would have been missing, if one Jew would have not been present by Har Sinai, the entire Torah could have not been given. How unbelievably awesome is that when you think about it, that one person, one Yid, makes the difference if the entire nation could be able to receive the law, the legacy. Think of a secular law, a government. What does the law have to do with if one person is present or not? But over here, it's because Yisrael, and Yisrael is the most important thing, and therefore the Torah, the law, so to speak, without Yisrael is incomplete. And it has to be the complete Shleimus Ha'am, the complete nation, to make a complete Torah. I don't want to get into the philosophical, deep concepts connected to that right now, but I just want to stress that we see straight away by Matan Torah the importance of how beloved and how special Yidden are, and we see that from the idea of counting. When you count something like a child, he counts his cars, those Matchbox cars, Hot Wheels, you could see that they could gather it, they keep it put away, they could pour out the whole container and play with them Shabbos after Shabbos, and the same thing with the marbles, they're counting the marbles again and again. Anyways, I'm just saying, so the Eibishter loves the Yidden, so therefore he counts them constantly. But that's the way it's explained all over. Today I want to talk about, we have to add always, today I want to talk about some points which are not always discussed as preparation to Shavuos. They are, but we bring it out different ways. So first of all, over here, the Pasuk says, at the beginning of Bamidbar, what does Hashem say when we're using the word? When we talk about counting, what do we say? The Pasuk says, Su'u esroish. Su'u esroish. Take a census, that's what we translate it. But Su'u esroish literally means pick up their heads. So this concept is really discussed in many places in the Torah. It applies to Kisisa, Parshas Kisisa, Su'u esroish. You could also talk about the idea of Nosai, which, by the way, Parshas Bamidbar and Nosai have a common denominator, which is the counting and the census. There's more common denominators I will soon get to soon. So the word that's connected to counting is Su'u esroish. So the general interpretation over here, and as the Rishonim bring out in different Meforshim, Su'u esroish means raise them, lift them up. Like when a person's head is raised high with pride. So there's one message over here immediately, and as a preparation for Matan Torah, we have to realize that the Torah is the way that every single Yid will rise. Every single Yid will reach his ultimate, making his ultimate self, his better self, maximizing his potential. Healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, etc. So Su'u esroish, this is what Matan Torah is all about, elevating the Jews. Su'u esroish, in a deeper Hasidic meaning, I don't want to elaborate on this now, is that the word roish goes on moichin, the intellect, Chabad, faculties of the soul, and Su'u esroish means even the head, which is Chabad, has to be in touch with the essence, with Etzam HaNefesh, which means that the essence itself, which is even higher than intellect, will permeate even all of the faculties, that the faculties, even the head, becomes elevated. But that's already a deep concept. So Su'u esroish has that interpretation of Jewish pride and positivity. Lift them up. Now, how do we see also immediately the connection to Matan Torah? Because the first words in this week's Parsha, and this is going to be connected also to Su'u esroish, is Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe Bamidbar Sinai. Hashem is speaking Bamidbar Sinai. So the Sefer is called Bamidbar. Yes, Sefer Bamidbar. And the words are Bamidbar Sinai. What do we know about Rosh Chodesh Sivan? And what is the introduction to the Aseret HaDibros and Parshas Yisro? A grand announcement. B'chodesh hashlishi l'tzeis b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim b'yom hazeh bo midbar Sinai. So when we talk about Rosh Chodesh Sivan, we make an announcement how, wow, it's so special. This is the day we arrived at Sinai. And the next pasuk says, Vayisu mefidim, vayavoyu midbar Sinai, vayachnu bamidbar, vayichan shom Yisrael neged ahor. By the way, I forgot to mention, in Lubavitch and Chabad, we have labeled, so to speak, the Shabbos Bamidbar, Shabbos Achdus. all over the Chabad, Lubavitch community around the world. It's called Shabbos Achdus. The synagogues, various Chabad shuls get together, yeshivas. It's a Shabbos Achdus. The Rebbe instituted that the Shabbos before Shavuos, Shabbos Bamidbar, should be called Shabbos Achdus. And the connection is because Vayichan Shem Yisrael Keneged Har, that over there by Har Sinai, Ki'ish Echad B'Leiv Echad, everyone was united, and that made them a vehicle to receive the Torah. As we said, the act, the revelation at Sinai itself had to be only when all of the Yidden were united. So therefore, as a preparation to that, we stress the Achdus, the unity of the Jewish nation. The Jewish nation is one unit, one body. We're all connected. So now let's go back to this pasuk here. In Yisrael. And therefore, when it comes to Bamidbar, and it says right away at the beginning of the Parsha, Vayedaber Hashem al Moshe b'Midbar Sinai, we straight away remind ourselves, Vayem hazeh bo Midbar Sinai, that what is Midbar Sinai? Midbar Sinai is where we receive the Torah. Where the greatest experience in the history ever happened. Now, there's a Ohr HaChaim over there in Parshas Yisrael. On the pasuk right after it says, Vayem hazeh bo Midbar Sinai, it says, the Ohr HaChaim explains, Vayisru mefidim, Vayavoy Midbar Sinai, Vayachnu b'Midbar. I'm going to say it very, very briefly. But the Ohr HaChaim says that over here, the pasuk is mentioning three things that are requirements as a preparation to receive the Torah. 3 steps. And it all fits with Chassidus, beautiful, without elaborating. And the first thing he says is Vayisum Refidim, which means they have to go away from Refidim, Sharafu Yudei Midivrei Torah, which means that a person is missing motivation. He's a bit lazy. He's not strong in his diligence, in his hasmada. You have to work very hard, amal Torah, in order to acquire Torah. So Vayisum Refidim, we have to move beyond Refidim. We have to graduate from any laxity or diminishing of intensity, of concentration and effort involved in acquiring Torah knowledge. That's the first thing. So we have to toil, working to understand the Torah. Then it says, Vayavoy Midbar Sinai. And what does the Ohr HaChaim say? And this is what I want to I'll read his words, because it's Sefer Bamidbar. And he says as follows, V'inyan sheni hu hashiflus v'hanova, humility. Ke'ein divrei Torah miskayomin elo b'mi shemashpil atzmo yemasam atzmei kemidbar. A person has to look at himself like he's not Mr. Hot Stuff, like he's not Mr. full of the greatest, attractive, glorious things. You have to be humble. In a certain sense, you have to see yourself as barren as a desert. He says like a desert that everyone treads upon it. Like earth. The pasuk says, and we say it every day, our soul should be considered like earth, like dust. And then we say, how do you make yourself a vehicle for the Torah? Through humility. I don't want to elaborate now. We spoke about the subject many times, because since the Torah is infinite, it's God's wisdom, Hashem's knowledge, so it's godliness. So the vehicle to take infinity is not through your existence, but through your non-existence. By making yourself transparent, by nullifying yourself, then you make yourself a vehicle for the big, infinite wisdom of Hashem. And that's the rule. The more a person, like so to speak, let's say to talk in practical language, to be objective. What does it mean for a person to be objective? To be objective means you have to go out of yourself. You're able to see, open yourself up to another side, to another view, to a bigger picture, to differing opinions. The more a person's stuck in his own perspective and his own agenda, then it'll be a contradiction to be able to see anything which is outside of himself and his limited knowledge. So too we say concerning Torah, the first requirement is that a person should have humility. This is something which really demands more and more people talking about how humility is the most underrated virtue and how important it is in day-to-day life, in every single area of your life, in relationships, interpersonal relationships, and with Hashem, of course. Now, it goes without saying that humility doesn't have to be a contradiction to positive self-esteem. And it goes without saying, and this is another point, and now is not the time to get into the whole subject, but this is also the beauty over here. Straight away, when we say Bamidbar Sinai, and that's the beginning of the Parsha, which over here the Orach Chaim is saying that the point of Bamidbar is humility. At the same exact thing, 2 words later, we say Su'u Esreish, pick them up, make them feel pride, be full of Jewish pride. So we see it's not a contradiction at all. And the truth is, that's exactly how it's explained concerning Har Sinai. Moch Mikol Turi, the famous talk about if Hashem wants to give the Torah in the... why was Sinai chosen? Because it was the most small of all the mountains. Famous question, if we're looking for small, why do we have to have a mountain? Just give the Torah in a valley. No. We need the combination of both of these traits in the person. On the one hand, he's full of Jewish pride. On the other hand, he's full of humility, because it's not pride which is associated with vanity. It's not pride which is associated with ego. It's pride because of the powers that God believes in me. God has faith in me. Hashem says that I am special. I matter because Hashem says I matter, etc., etc. So that sort of pride is something that inspires the person, galvanizes the person more and more to grow and to demand of himself more and more. Not because he's not good, because he always feels he could do better and better. And he's doing it b'simcha. Just like somebody who's an athlete and he wants to be the champion. He's working on himself and demanding himself. And is he happy? He'll say he's the happiest person in the world because he's reaching heights that he never that he wants to reach. It takes hard work, and it's connected to pride, but it's healthy pride, hopefully, in an athlete. So in any case, and the answer is again, we have to be a mountain on one hand. You know, when it comes to fighting for the right principles, when it comes to realizing that there are truths like the Torah that are not subject to whims and moods, and we believe in those truths, and that gives us a pride. We're connected to something which is higher than the world, but at the same time, we realize that if it was just me, based on my own faculties, on my own human limitations, so what am I already? So we have to have that combination, similar to the famous word that says about a certain tzaddik, he kept 2 pieces of paper on him at all times. And one piece of paper he had the Maimer Azal, which said, B'shvili nivra olam. For me the world was created. That's why it says, L'fichach nivra adam yichidi. Man was created alone. He's the only creature that was created without a partner. And then Chava came from Adam. Why was L'fichach nivra adam yichidi? Because B'shvili nivra olam. I have to change the world. I have to consider myself, in a certain sense, the most important thing. That in my hands is dependent everything, the salvation of the entire mankind. Just like if one Yid was missing from Matan Torah, the whole Matan Torah wouldn't happen. But on the other hand, there's another piece of paper that I had, Manuchi offer the Efer. I have to have another piece of paper that says, I am nothing but dust and ashes. So it's the healthy combination of these 2 feelings together. You're a mountain because you're connected to things that are giants, cliffs, the Ovis, Tzadikim, Hashem, Torah, mitzvahs. That makes you like a mountain. On the other hand, if you look at yourself just by yourself, then you're humble. So we see right away now in Parsha. Bamidbar Sinai tells you on one hand, Meisam Atzmai Kimidbar, humility. 2 seconds later, Su'u Esreish, a combination. Similar to the idea of Har Sinai itself. Finally, by the way, over here, the Orach Chaim says, after that, the third thing is the idea of Vayichan Shem Yisrael, and he says, Yud Chachomim B'Ischabrus B'Leiv Sholem V'Tomim. He speaks about the idea that Yisvadu Yachad, communities should bring together And this is the idea of Avos Yisrael. See the Orach Chaim over there. So far we spoke about toiling in Torah, we spoke about Bamidbar, humility, but at the same time, pride, ultimate pride. You matter, you really matter because Hashem decided you matter, and also Avos Yisrael connecting with another Yid. Now, there's another amazing thing, which is, I think we should speak about one common denominator between Parshas Bamidbar, Nosoi, is about the Levium. And it talks about the different jobs of every Shevet. That's going to be in this week's Parsha, next week's Parsha. And he also says over here, talking about Shevet Levi, that they were not counted with everyone else. And the Pasuk says, in Pasuk Mem Zayin, in Kapitel Aleph, Pasuk Mem Tes, Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe, Leima Achas Mate Levi Lo Sifkoid. Don't count the tribe of Levi. And Rashi says, Kedayu Ligyoin Shel Melech. The king's legion is worthy, Liyes Nimna Levade, to be counted by itself. He brings another reason. Rashi brings another reason. The other reason is another reason to show how Shevet Levi was different. So therefore they can't be counted with everyone else. But these words alone are worthy of focusing on. Kedayu ligin shamelech liyes nimna levadoi. Shevet Levi, the whole tribe, is focused on spirituality. So therefore they're counted differently. And this we have to know also as a preparation to Matan Torah. That every single one of us has an aspect of Shevet Levi. And the Rebbe used to quote this Rambam. I would say this is one of the most quoted Rambams that the Rebbe quoted, and that's from Hilchos Shmita v'Yovel Perik Yud Gimel Halacha Yud Gimel, and I'm going to read it quickly. V'lo Shevet Levi bulvad, and not only the tribe of Levi, elakol ish v'ish mikol boy ha'olam, but every single person from the entire world, which in a certain sense he's including over here even non-Jews, which is unbelievable. But let's elakol ish v'ish mikol boy ha'olam asher nidva rucho yoisoi, whose spirit generously motivates him. V'yavino mada laibodel lamed lifnei Hashem, and he has the knowledge and the maturity to set himself aside, to stand before Hashem, l'shor soy la'avdoi, l'deas havaya, v'hilich yoshat. He dedicates himself to elevate himself, to grow in his knowledge of Hashem, and he walks straight, he's honest, and he's just. U'poirik me'al tzavari oil ha'chashbonis harabim asher bikshu b'nei Adam, and he removes from his neck the many reckonings and accountings which people seek. Harezen is Kadesh, Kodesh, Kadoshim, V'yeh Hashem Chelkoi Nachlosoi Le'olam Le'olmei Elamim. Wow, wow, wow. He becomes sanctified with the holiest of holies, and Hashem is considered his portion. So, what is not repeated many times when we speak about this Rambam is that the Rambam describes what the person has to do is he has to libodel lamed lifnei Hashem. He has to set himself aside to stand before Hashem, which means he's not preoccupied with his personal needs and his personal desires. He focuses on serving others, serving mankind, bringing benefit to others. And therefore, connected to that, the Rambam says clearly, you know, you have regular people. What are they worried about? We're not blaming anyone. We're not judging anyone. But we're talking about what does it mean that kol ish v'ish asher nidva ruchoi. The Rambam is saying that in a way we have to try to elevate ourselves. And elevating ourselves means that we're not thinking like just everyone else is thinking. Everyone else is thinking how they're going to put food on the table, how they're going to pay their mortgage, and whatever it is. How am I going to be able to relax? I'm not saying over here a person not to relax. And of course, everyone should have how to pay their mortgage. But the question is, the majority of time, what is occupying your brain space? That's what the Rambam is saying over here. That the person is nidva liboy, to dedicate himself, to be considered like Shevet Levi. And every single one of us has that aspect. And the Rebbe mentioned this many times. You could say this is the whole idea of the shlichus concept, where everyone is a shliach, the Rebbe said. So the idea of shlichus means that the person, and this is the healthiest thing for himself, and for his family, and for his entire life, is that he becomes a bit less preoccupied with self, and dedicates himself to a higher cause. That's the focus. And that's what it means to be part of Shevet Levi. And the Rambam makes it so clear, and it's so inspiring to read his words over here, that kol ish v'ish, asher nidva ruchoi oisoi, every person that decides to dedicate himself in such a way, but it means u'peirik ma'al oil ha'cheshbonis harabim, then you have to try to graduate and elevate and rise, not to have your mind full of regular mundane thoughts that other people might have, and try to rise and elevate yourself to become more spiritual. But obviously it means that you're action oriented to help others, etc. And that's the connection also with Parshas Bamidbar that we see in this week's Parsha, that the Eibishter set aside Shevet Levi. And then in next week's Parsha, we're going to learn right before Shavuos, it speaks all about Shevet Levi and the different families in Shevet Levi, Kahos, Merari, all that. Anyways, now let's just connect it to a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. The whole Perek Shishi of Pirkei Avos talks about Kinyan Torah, and that's why it's learned Perek Shishi before Shavuos, because the focus is on how great Torah is, how we have to cherish Torah, and therefore that's the discussion. We're running out of time, so we'll just finish a couple of words shortly. And this is the Mishnah, and Perek Vav Mishnah, the second Mishnah, Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. He talks about B'chol Yom V'Yom Baskol Yotzes Mahar Chorev, that there's an echo that comes out and demands from us to occupy ourselves in Torah. But then he says, V'aluchos Ma'aseh Elikim Emo, the tablets that Hashem gave us, the luchos, were the work of Hashem, v'amichtav michtav elikimhu, and the writing was the writing of Hashem, choros al luchos, engraved on the tablets. And over here we have the famous words, al tikra choros el acheros. It doesn't mean only engraved, but the word engraved is connected to freedom. She'en lecha ben chayren, el misha oisek b'talmud Torah. The true man is the one who learns Torah. You want to be liberated? You want to be a free man? Occupy yourself in Torah. This is everything we spoke about today. So, whoever occupies himself with Torah, what a beautiful word that is. Anyone who occupies himself with the study of Torah becomes elevated. Is there a better word than elevated? Elevated means to no end. Elevated means in every area of your life. You know, the wonder drug, the wonder pill, the wonder miracle. You want to get elevated? You want to get free? Learn Torah. These are different names where people traveled, but the Mishnah is learning it in the way of drush from the place called Matana, which means the gift. Could also be called the gift. We went to a place called Nachliel, which is a Nachla, a heritage of Hashem. And then we came to Bamois. Bamois represents Meloshem Bama, to a high place. So when you study Torah, you get elevated. First you get the gift, then it becomes like really part of you. That's your inheritance, that's your heritage. And then we come to Bamois, which means to no end. Like when we say the word Mimal, Mimal, to no end. So this is what we have to stress on the Shabbos before Shavuos this idea that is there anybody out there that doesn't want to be free? Is there anybody out there that doesn't want to be liberated? And the Rebbe explains two reasons. One reason is because the true nature of a Yid, to be free, means when your true nature, your essence, is able to express itself totally. Today we have a word called self-expression. For a Yid, self-expression means when his nefesh elikis is able to be expressed, the more the merrier, and that makes you a free man. So Torah is the key. Learning Torah, connecting to Hashem through Torah, is the key to unleash your self-expression to the utmost. And the second thing is because Torah is Hashem, who's infinite, and the way for a Yid to rise above the limitations of creations, is through learning Torah, which is a yichud niflash and yichud kamei. We connect with infinity, and this is the way we travel on the infinity highway. The Rebbe should help. We should take all these lessons of occupying ourselves in Torah, thinking about how we can serve others. Being Shevet Levi is a twofold avodah within ourselves to try to work always higher and develop ourselves more in self-development, etc., and changing for the better. And the same thing Shevet Levi means that he's directed towards others and he's dedicated himself to a higher cause. And finally, also we spoke about Achdus, and finally to have a geschmack, to realize that Torah is the way, and that's how we become all free. Good Shabbos, and posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.